Hi, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you Come Follow Me for May, and I'm excited to get into this. So if you enjoy this type of content and other homeschool content, please remember to subscribe. Let's talk about Come Follow Me. Okay, so we have a lot of fun stories this month, like good parables, stuff that I think is a little easier to talk about. Sometimes if it's just principles over and over and over again, it's a little bit harder, but this makes it fun and you could do some really fun things with it. So the first week, we're going to be talking about a lot of parables that talk about lost things. So there's the parable of the sheep and the lost coin and the prodigal son. And I can't remember who it was in this past general conference, like just April of 2023, but they talk about these parables. So that might be a good thing to review as you go through this as well. But they're going to go through some of these and see what was lost, listen to the story as you tell it. They'll draw a picture of what was lost or different things like that. I asked them some different things like with the lost coin, what does the woman do to find the lost coin? She lights a lamp, she searches, she does a lot of things that it tells you in the scriptures, so they can look that up. And then we're also going to have the story of the prodigal son. And this is just a really great story. It's a really sweet story. And it's also good to talk about, I think, sometimes, especially with kids and siblings, not realizing how important it is to love your siblings and to love others, not just in your family, no matter what. When you accept them because they came back, they come back to Christ, not because of all the things they did. You're not like, oh, wait, what they did this and they did this. And then I was obedient the whole time, which is how the brother feels. But how important it is when someone comes back, we're just excited they came back. Okay, and God's already excited that we have stayed faithful. It's not a competition, which I feel like with my kids, everything is a competition. So I think that's very, very important. And then the next week, we're going to talk a little bit about families and marriage and things like that. And so I just wanted to point this one out. This is the importance of family. So it's going to have them go through several scriptures that were listed in Come Follow Me and write about what they say about families and the importance of marriage and why eternal families are important. And I left a little bit more room for the proclamation because it's bigger. There's a lot of information in there. So, sorry, being pregnant and still getting over being sick is super fun over here. But I left room so you could write that down. But this would also be a fun time if they have their own personal scriptures, or maybe we have like scriptures we use for homeschool, which is just the New Testament. So they're just very small and you can get them for pretty cheap, like at Deseret Book or, Siegel probably has something similar. And so they could go through and scripture chain this. So you could kind of teach them how to do that. Start with the first one and then you write the next scripture. So for First Corinthians, you'll write it next to Mark and so on. And then the family proclamation, you probably wouldn't include, you could include it if you wanted to, but you could just stop at Moses and put Mark back again. So it makes a whole loop. And then sometimes it's good to write at the beginning of your scriptures that this is a scripture chain about eternal families and it starts in Mark or something like that. Just so if you're wondering and you can go back, like your kids could go back and be like, oh, we did the scripture chain about this, and they can find a whole bunch of scriptures about that topic. So that's just one way to do it. You don't have to do that. They can just look at the scriptures and answer or draw pictures. But if you want them to learn a way of studying the scriptures, of connecting topics, that might be what you want to do. And then I think this is the next week. We're going to be talking about Zacchaeus or Zacchaeus. I know people pronounce it different ways, and how he climbed up in the tree. I just gave it away right here because they're going to listen to the story and draw where he went. And then the next day we're going to still be talking about him because Christ tells him, Christ sees him in the tree and then tells him to come. Right here it says, make haste and come down. And they're going to fill in the blanks here, which is basically him quickly coming, quickly listening. And why that's important, when God asks us to do something or when his prophets ask us to do something, how are we listening to them? Are we like, well, I'll get around to it, I'll be there when I feel like it? Or are we just quick to listen. And there's several examples throughout the scriptures of people that were very quick to listen. Obviously those that weren't as well, but there's a lot of really good examples. And this same week we'll be talking about Jesus cleansing the temple. And the next day I put an opportunity for you guys to kind of reflect with you as a family about the temple. So the temple is a sacred place. And I thought I kind of left this open-ended. I did suggest you could reflect upon going to the temple. So some of your kids might have already been to the temple. Maybe they've only been in like the lobby area, the foyer, whatever you call that. But, like if they've been there for a wedding or something and they've kind of hung out there, that's where my kids have been most of the time. My oldest son has done baptisms now this year. He's old enough. But maybe they haven't actually been inside the temple. Maybe they've just seen the temple or been by a temple or whatever it is, so to reflect on how that made them feel, either being in the temple or being by a temple or seeing it, or even just seeing pictures of it. You could put up pictures of a bunch of different temples or show them on your computer and ask them how it feels. And something I think would be really cool if you are close to a temple, or maybe if you're not, like it could be a fun like homeschool field trip for this week or sometime during the month, is to go to the temple and sit on the temple grounds. You'll have to look, some temples don't open their grounds on Sundays. Ours isn't all, I think you can walk into it, but you can't park like where in temple parking on Sundays and stuff. So you might have to see what those are if you're doing it on a Sunday. But most time during the week, a lot of temples you can just go and you can sit like on the grounds. You could have the kids touch the temple, especially like little kids. And it could just be a really good experience. You could pack a lunch, you could do with it what you want, but it might be a really great time to show the importance of the temple and talk about how sacred it is. The day before they're talking about how Jesus cleansed the temple because people weren't treating it correctly, and how we treat the temple and then how we act in the temple. It's a place of peace and calm and quiet, where we're going to feel the Spirit, to receive revelation. And I just feel like it'd be a really good teaching opportunity there. So I just wanted to point that out as an extra suggestion. And then there's the parable of the two sons. And you might remember this story. When I read it, I remembered it, but I couldn't just like pick it out of my brain and tell you. But it's basically the one says he'll go to work and doesn't show up, and the other says he's not going to go and then does show up. But he shows up late in the day or whatever. And which one in the end did the right thing? And this would be a great time to talk about being obedient and having integrity. When you say you're going to do something, you need to follow through, or, at least let people know if there's something that's come up. And so here they're going to write like below these or to the side, doesn't really matter, what each of them did, and then circle the one who at the end of the day chose to do the right thing, chose to follow Christ, basically. So that's fun. And then the next week, we're going to be talking about missionary work and how before the second coming, the missionaries will be sent to all the world, right? The gospel will be preached to all the world. And this scripture is actually in Joseph Smith Matthew. And so if you wanted to, I didn't put anything specifically in here, but you could go and explain what Joseph Smith Matthew is again and talk about where it comes from, since it's in the Pearl of Great Price. The Pearl of Great Price gets incorporated into like all years because we just kind of put all the different scriptures relate to different things. And so you could go and talk about it some more, but they're going to do some activities with that. And then I thought it would be super fun if they have like missionaries within your own family or missionaries in your ward, just kind of whatever you have access to, or you go to Family Search. And I put a map of the United States here. And then I also put a map of the world. And so you can go in here and you could go back in your family line if you have a lot of church history and be like, okay, where did this people serve and this people? And you can mark them. It's going to be hard. This is going to be a geography lesson as well because these aren't labeled. This is the best I could best I could do. And so you'll have to go through and figure out, like on this one, you could just put it like generally on the world one if you wanted to, like if they're in Africa somewhere or whatever. And some of these countries are very small up here in Europe, so it might be kind of hard. You could just put a dot. You know, you could make it as big or small as you wanted to. If you wanted to do on like a bigger map, you could do that. I guess it depends how ambitious you want to be. And then we're going to talk about, we're going to have a few more end of world I guess if you want to call them that, parables that we're going to be talking about. So we have the 10 virgins right here that they can go through and write or draw like some highlights. And then there's another activity the next day about testimony that goes along with the 10 virgins, and then, you know, filling our lamps, how we have to feel them more responsible for our own conversion, so they can do that. And then there's also going to be some more parables here, again, that are talking more about final judgment, end of world type stuff. And so they can go through the parables and draw pictures of them. Okay, so that's Come Follow Me for May. I don't have any bingo cards because we haven't had enough stuff yet to make a new one, but maybe after all these parables and stuff in a few months we can get more bingo cards. But I'll link January's and last month's bingo cards down below. So if you're interested in downloading those ones, you know, for review and for fun, you can check those ones out. And remember to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.